Hello to the internet. My name's Craig Montgomery, and we're here to talk about who even am I? Or, who even are you? It's a collective I. So, my past two videos have been, I guess, a little deep, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So today I'm going to be talking about FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, which I personally deal with quite a bit. So this is a term that I saw pop up in internet culture probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it's sort of had its own little insurgence of viral popularity or whatever, but I think it's something that we all deal with to an extent. I mean, there's always that moment where you have to make the choice. Am I gonna go to that party, hang out with my friends, or, do some me time and hang out at home? Or, at certain points of my life, I've been a little bit more isolated where I didn't necessarily have like a really strong social network. So there were portions of time where I had friends who were doing lots of fun things, but they weren't like good friends, they were just acquaintances. So I didn't actually have the capability to hang out with them and do all of the fun things, which is, you're already isolated in that situation, and then you end up feeling more isolated because you don't have access to do the fun stuff. So that kind of situation just creates a lot of FOMO. It makes you feel lesser than, I guess is the best way to kind of put that. So I have a few thoughts about what that means. Actually, there was a really fun comic that The Oatmeal did. He's a really cool internet cartoonist that I'm a pretty big fan of, and he did something called JOMO as a response to this thing kind of like exploding in popularity, which is the joy of missing out. And I really like the concept of turning your focus around and putting power into the choices that you're making. So basically empowering yourself to say, this is how I want to be spending my time. And that matters more than how my peers or my friends are spending theirs, or are trying to tell me that I should be spending mine. And so I think that's kind of like the best way to sort of encompass what you should do when you get FOMO. It's just so weird to say. I think the times in my life that I've had the most issues with FOMO is when I have been the least productive with the use of my time. So if I'm not feeling like I'm doing something creative, because I like to be creative, so that's something that's important to me. But I guess just any kind of sense of productivity, whatever that means to you. So if I wasn't feeling creative or like I was being productive, I would get sucked into that cycle of comparison, looking at people on social media, even like watching TV and thinking my life isn't this interesting, things like this don't happen to me. That kind of comparison is like pretty pointless, because if you're not actively building your life into something that you like, of course that's what's going to be happening. It's just so much easier to fall into that cycle if you're not working towards some goals or doing something productive with your time that you value. You will be looking at these external sources of information, and it's like triggering that inspiration, but it also turns into like envy and jealousy a little bit when you're not doing something about it. So I think that's kind of like the two different directions for that. I think when you are doing things that you're happy about, but you're still experiencing some what ifs, turn that into joy. Just find happiness and satisfaction in the fact that you're doing things that matter to you, and empower yourself to feel like that's valid. So I guess we can talk about a few different things that maybe you can explore if you don't really quite know what your passion projects are, things that can get you like pumped up and excited and ready to get up in the morning and do the things. I assume pretty much everybody has a daily responsibility like school or work, but that's not enough to sustain us, because those are things that we don't usually choose. They're just kind of like handed to us. Very rarely people can find a job that's like super fulfilling for them creatively, and it fills a lot of that void. I don't know, we have this sense inside of us that we have to do something in order to create value and produce things. It's social, it's personal, it's something about being human. I'm not terribly sure, I just know I have it. some categories of, I guess, things that you can start to explore. Be creative. I think creativity is wonderful, and even if you don't feel like a terribly creative person, or that, you know, everything that you create sucks, it doesn't matter, it's still fun. So pick up paint and paint with your fingers, or draw in a coloring book, or write a story, sing some songs, work on musical things, you know, anything in that creative world. Even if it's not going to be something that you can do with your life, spending an hour a week or 2 hours a week, whatever feels good to you, working on that matters, because it's time for yourself. It's little projects, it's things that you can say like, hey, I did something creative this week, and even if I'm not sharing that with other people, I think that's kind of cool. When I have friends that do creative stuff, I'm like, wow, good for you. And I often don't get to consume whatever they're creating, but I'm still like inspired by the fact that they put that time aside. Read a book. Another thing that you can do is read more books. I think that books are a wonderful way for you to connect with the world. You don't have to travel for it, but you get to experience so many new perspectives. So I think that it's just a really good way to activate a lot of those different parts of your brain, and it also helps you explore different things that you haven't experienced before, and you might find something that you're like, wow, that really inspires me. I want to do that. When I was a kid, I read this book about the Mayflower, and it was about pilgrims coming over from Europe to America, which was like, I don't know, I was 10 years old. This should have been the most boring thing that I had ever read. But there's this person in it who was an apothecary, and I'm telling you, for like the next 6 years of my life, I wanted to be an apothecary because I thought that was the coolest thing. Going out to the forest, finding some herbs, making some medicine, and like healing people. I was like, I'm about that life. But, you know, didn't end up doing that. But it kept me inspired for years afterwards. So I think there's a lot of power to be had in reading books. Just gotta find the good ones that touch the little special places of your soul. Push yourself outside your comfort zone. Third thing that you can do is push yourself socially. You gotta put yourself in situations where you feel uncomfortable. And this is coming from someone with a large amount of social anxiety. But something that I've realized is if I take ownership of that, if I understand I might be a little awkward, I might have a few extra steps of discomfort to move through in order to enjoy a situation, but that shouldn't stop me from trying to engage in it. So moving into exploring different places, going to a new coffee shop instead of the same coffee shop that you go to every time, or saying yes to that one friend who asked you to something that you may have not before because you feel like you have enough friends already. I don't know. Find ways to put yourself out there. Just move into new spaces that you haven't explored before. You're gonna meet new people, you're gonna be doing new things. And it really just opens up the way that you look at the world and the possibilities that are there. When you're in a space that you haven't been before and there are people that you might never see again, there's this tangible sense of opportunity there. Just a bit of adventure that you could snag onto at any moment. And even if you don't, even if you're there with a friend that you have a bond with already, it's just exciting that it's there. It creates a sense of hope and possibility and inspires you to move and do something, and that's fun. So I highly suggest it. Start off small if you need to, but push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I think that things start naturally growing from that point. When you start moving in that direction, you start finding the things that will keep you motivated to keep going. And at that point, it just becomes easier and it becomes exciting, and you want to do the things and build and create and find something to get passionate about, and then you become on fire and people notice it and they're like, whoa, what's up with you? And you're like, hey, I'm living my life and it's awesome. And they're like, I want to live my life too. How'd you do that? And then you have this really fun conversation about, you know, I read this book and it made me aware that knitting could be kind of fun, so I picked up a pair of needles and I actually really like knitting. So then I explored this new coffee shop where I started knitting in it, and someone walked up to me because they're like, hey, people don't usually knit, that's really interesting, we should have a conversation. And then I made a new friend, and then I was like, whoa, this is a super positive experience. and that was really cool. I should do things like this more often. And that is great. I mean, not that that's always gonna happen, but it could. And you know what? It's not gonna happen unless you get off your butt and try the thing. So I think that's what fear of missing out is. The fear of missing out is letting anxiety tell you I shouldn't do the thing, and then recognizing, hey, I'm not doing that thing, other people are. Then there's the other side of the coin, the joy of missing out. Sometimes it's really important to understand and respect and accept your limitations, and finding the way to find joy in that and happiness and empowering myself to make that choice and feel good about it is what helps eliminate the FOMO. It cuts it out because I can understand that it's okay for me to make that choice, and it's okay for other people to make a different choice, and that we can be gaining positive, healthy experiences from two different situations. And that's okay. It's really hard to navigate through that when you feel the social pressure to conform. I had a lot of shame around the fact that I'm a little bit more reserved and introverted and deep thinky and emotional than a lot of my peers, because there's this strong sense of wanting to be able to fit in so that more people will like you. Moving through that self-acceptance and shaking off the shame was essential to finding a way to build my own happiness so that I can wake up every day and say it's gonna be a good day. And when things don't go right and stuff falls apart, because it always does, life is always hard, it's so much easier to keep a positive attitude about it and say yeah, this might not be ideal, but I can work with this. You know, it's rare that you're in complete crisis where things are totally falling apart. That doesn't happen that often in life. It's usually just I've got some stuff that I have to work through to get the thing that I want to get out of this. But I feel it's just so much easier to be I'm equipped and I can do this when I'm seated in a place of power where I feel like I'm holding on to my integrity. I know who I am because I've done the work. I've sat down with myself and figured out what I want, and I'm moving through this space the way that I choose to. So those are my thoughts on FOMO, and I guess sort of that JOMO thing. So I hope that me sort of thinking out loud about that was helpful to you in some way. If it was, let me know. Leave a comment down below, give the video a like. I don't know. I'd like to start this engaged thing. I want to know you guys. Guys, what is that? I was Brokeback Mountain coming out of me. I want to talk to you guys, so let me know what's up. If you have any ideas for future topics, please let me know that as well. And if you are enjoying this content, subscribe. I'm gonna be putting out videos every Tuesday, I believe. We'll see how that goes. As always, take care of yourself. Here to, wow.